The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Thousands of representatives, from hundreds of worlds, sat in their seats. Watching the human ambassador walk to the center platform, Hyun-Woo Kim was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served the council for 30 years. Everyone knew him. Everyone trusted him. He stood at the podium and looked around the chamber. His face showed no emotion. He held a small datapad in his hands but did not look at it. He knew what he had to say. "Members of the Galactic Council," Hyun-Woo began. His voice was clear and calm. "I stand before you today to deliver humanity's final message to this body. After 127 years of membership, humanity is withdrawing from all galactic affairs. Effective immediately, we are closing our borders. All diplomatic relations are ended. All trade agreements are cancelled. All military partnerships are dissolved." A wave of shocked whispers filled the hall. Chairman Talon Vor, a tall bird-like creature with blue feathers, stood up from his seat. "Ambassador Kim, surely there must be some mistake. Has something happened? Has someone offended your people?" Hyun-Woo shook his head slowly. "No mistake, Chairman. This decision is final. We are done talking. All human personnel are being recalled from alien worlds as we speak. Our space stations will close within 48 hours. Our borders will be sealed. Do not attempt to contact us. Do not attempt to cross into human space." "But why?" shouted Drexus, the reptilian trade minister. His green scales turned dark with emotion. "Your people are responsible for 40% of all galactic trade routes. Your ships carry food to starving worlds. Your diplomats keep the peace between warring factions. You cannot simply leave." "We can, and we are," Hyun-Woo said. There was no anger in his voice, only certainty. "Humanity wishes all species well, but we will no longer participate in galactic society. Goodbye." He turned and walked away. Security tried to stop him, but Chairman Vor raised his wing. "Let him go," the chairman said quietly. The entire council watched as the human ambassador left the chamber for the last time. Across the galaxy, the withdrawal happened exactly as Hyun-Woo promised. Captain G1 Park commanded a fleet of human ships that collected every human from alien worlds. On the trading station of Core 7, human merchants packed their goods in silence. When alien friends asked them what was wrong, they simply said, "We're going home." On the mining colony of Helios Prime, human workers boarded their transports. A young insectoid miner named Tix had worked beside humans for 5 years. "Please tell me why you're leaving," Tix begged his human friend. "Did I do something wrong?" The human, a woman named Sujin, put her hand on Tix's shoulder. "You did nothing wrong, friend. This isn't about individuals. This is about the system. Take care of yourself." Then she was gone. Within 1 week, every human had left alien territory. The borders of human space lit up with defense platforms and patrol ships. Warning beacons broadcast a simple message in all galactic languages. "Human space is closed. Turn back immediately. We will not communicate. We will not negotiate. Leave us alone. Owner. Owner. Owner." The economic impact was immediate and devastating. Trade routes that had operated for a century suddenly had no ships running them. Stations that relied on human goods found their supplies cut off. Mediators that humans had trained were gone, and old conflicts began to heat up again. In the council chambers, emergency sessions ran day and night. Different factions blamed each other. The Hive Collective insisted they had done nothing wrong. The crystal-based Lumina claimed they were innocent. Every species pointed fingers at every other species. "Someone must have insulted them," argued Valtor, the military strategist for the Hive. His multiple eyes blinked in different patterns, showing his agitation. "Humans don't act without reason. They are calculating creatures. Perhaps they discovered something," suggested Erindis, an empathic being who appeared as shifting light. "When I touched the minds of departing humans, I felt disappointment, deep disappointment, and determination. Chairman Talon Vor paced the floor of his private office. He had worked with humans for decades. They had helped him prevent 3 wars and negotiate peace in 7 conflicts. Now they were gone, and he had no idea why. Send envoys to human space, he ordered. Use every diplomatic channel. Offer them anything they want. We need to understand what happened. But every envoy was turned away. Human defense platforms were polite but absolute. Automated messages played on repeat. Return to your territory. We will not speak with you. This is your only warning. Number 5. 1-6 Team. 1-1-6 Team. On Earth, life continued as normal. In the city of New Seoul, people went to work and school. Children played in parks. Farmers grew crops. Factories produced goods. But now, everything stayed within human borders. Not a single ship left for alien space. Not a single message was sent to the Council. Dae-Jung Lee commanded the defense platform at Border Station 7. Ships came every day, trying to get through. Some brought gifts. Some brought threats. Some just begged to talk. Dae-Jung watched them all turn away. His orders were clear. No contact, no exceptions. Do you think this is right? Asked his second officer, a young woman named Hana. Dae-Jung looked at the screen showing another alien ship turning back. I think we've been patient long enough, he said. Now they'll learn what happens when they take us for granted. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had stopped caring about galactic affairs. The silence from Earth was louder than any declaration of war. And in that silence, the other species began to panic. 3 months had passed since humanity went silent. The galaxy was breaking apart. Chairman Talon Vor stood before the Council, his blue feathers dulled with stress. We have sent 47 diplomatic missions to human space. All were turned away. We have tried every frequency, every communication method. The humans respond only with automated messages telling us to leave them alone. Trade Minister Drexus slammed his clawed hand on his desk. My people are starving. Human ships carried food to 6 of our colony worlds. Those ships are gone. We've tried to establish new routes, but it takes time. Time we don't have. My worlds face the same crisis, added Ambassador Kelrin, whose slug-like body trembled with worry. But it's not just food. Human technology kept our life support systems running. Human engineers taught us how to maintain them, but we're not as skilled. Systems are failing. Valtor of the Hive Collective stood, his armored body gleaming under the chamber lights. I say the humans are preparing for war. They withdraw. They isolate. They build up their forces in secret. Then they will strike when we are weak and divided. That makes no sense, argued Arindus, the empathic being. Humans had no reason to want war. They were prosperous. They were respected. Why would they throw that away? Perhaps they found something, suggested a delegate from the gaseous whisper species. A new technology. A new weapon. Something that makes them believe they no longer need us. Or perhaps they're dying, said another voice. A plague. A genetic disorder. They've isolated themselves to prevent it from spreading. The theories multiplied every day. Some said humans had made contact with an ancient alien intelligence. Others claimed humans had discovered the Council was planning to betray them. A few conspiracy theorists insisted that the humans had been replaced by imposters, and the real humans were crying out for help. On Border Station 7, Dae-Jung Lee watched another attempted contact. This time, it was a small science vessel from the peaceful Mentari species. They broadcast a simple message. We mean no harm. Dae-Jung felt a pang of sympathy. He remembered Mentari scientists working alongside humans on clean energy projects. Good people. Honest people. But his orders were clear. Send the standard response, he told his communications officer. The automated message played. Return to your territory. We will not speak with you. The Mentari ship lingered for 6 hours, broadcasting messages of friendship and confusion. Then it finally turned around and left. Dae-Jung watched it go. He wondered if the Mentari understood yet. He doubted it. "Sir, do you think they'll ever figure it out?" asked Hana, his second officer. "Eventually," Daejung said. "But, by then, it might be too late for them." Inside human territory, life had actually improved. Without the constant demands of galactic politics, humans focused on their own worlds. New cities were built. Art and culture flourished. Scientists worked on projects that benefited humanity rather than serving galactic interests. On Research Station Kepler, Dr. Min-Seo Choi studied data from the last 100 years of human-alien interaction. She was writing a historical record, documenting everything that led to the withdrawal. The file was enormous. Every broken promise, every ignored injustice. Every time the council chose politics over principles. "It's overwhelming," she told her colleague over lunch. "When you see it all together, laid out year by year, you understand why we had to leave. We were becoming like them. We were learning to accept injustice as normal." Her colleague nodded. "My grandfather was at the council when they voted on the Kiltar situation. He said he watched humans argue for intervention for 6 hours, and the council voted no because it would upset trade with the Kiltar's oppressors. He came home and cried that night. Said he was ashamed to wear his uniform. Meanwhile, the galaxy continued to destabilize. Old rivalries that humans had mediated for decades erupted into violence. The Krylon and Vexar species, who had maintained an uneasy peace for 40 years thanks to human diplomacy, went to war within weeks of the withdrawal. Their border systems burned. Pirate activity increased by 300%. Human patrol ships had kept the space lanes safe. Now those lanes were vulnerable. Merchants traveled in fear. Some worlds became isolated, unable to trade safely. The council tried to fill the gaps. They appointed new mediators, established new patrol routes, created new trade systems. But nothing worked as well as it had with human involvement. The other species lacked something that humans had brought to galactic society. Some called it idealism. Others called it stubbornness. They actually believed in justice, Irindis explained during a private meeting with Chairman Talon-Vor. Most species see justice as a tool, something to use when it benefits them. Humans saw it as a principle, something to uphold even when it cost them. Then why did they leave? Talon-Vor asked, frustrated. If they cared so much, why abandon us? I think, Irindis said slowly, they left because they cared. They couldn't watch the injustice anymore. It was hurting them. The chairman didn't understand. None of them did. 6 months after the withdrawal, the Hive Collective began mobilizing its military fleets. Valtor convinced his government that human silence was a threat. They are weak now. While they reorganize, he argued. If we wait until they're ready, we'll face a war we cannot win. Better to strike first and demand answers. Other species watched nervously as Hive warships moved toward human borders. Some species quietly supported the action. Others condemned it. The council was paralyzed, unable to agree on any response. Chairman Talon-Vor sent one final message to Earth, transmitted on every frequency. Please, speak to us. Tell us what we did wrong. We can fix this. Don't let the galaxy fall into chaos. We need you. The response came 12 hours later. It was not automated. It was Hyun-Woo Kim, the former ambassador. He appeared on screens across the galaxy, looking older and more tired than before. Chairman Vor, he said quietly. We told you what was wrong for 100 years. You didn't listen then. Why would you listen now? We're not responsible for fixing your chaos. You created it. You maintain it. That's your choice. We've made ours. Don't contact us again. The transmission ended. The galaxy realized that humanity wasn't coming back. Whatever happened next, they would face it without their most reliable allies. The panic deepened, and on the borders of human space, the Hive fleet continued to gather, 8 months had passed since humanity closed its borders. The Hive collective fleet sat at the edge of human space. Thousands of warships, ready for battle. Commander Crick stood on the bridge of the flagship, his compound eyes studying the human defense platforms ahead. They have not increased their military presence, his tactical officer reported. Same number of ships, same defensive positions. It's as if they don't care that we're here. Crix found that disturbing. Any rational species would reinforce their borders when facing a hostile fleet. But the humans did nothing. They simply maintained their positions and broadcast the same automated warnings. Perhaps they're bluffing, Valtor said. He had come aboard to observe the operation personally. They know they cannot defeat us, so they pretend not to care. It's a psychological tactic. Or perhaps they really don't care, Crick suggested. That worries me more. The Council had been in emergency session for 3 days, debating the Hive fleet's presence at human borders. Some species demanded the Hive stand down. Others supported their right to seek answers. The Hive itself claimed they were acting in self-defense, protecting the galaxy from an unknown human threat. Chairman Talon Vor was exhausted. If you attack human space, you do so without Council authorization. The consequences will be yours alone. Valtor didn't care about authorization. The Hive government had made its decision. They would probe human defenses, test their resolve, and if necessary, take a border colony by force. Surely that would make the humans respond. The target was New Jeju, a farming colony of 60,000 humans on the edge of human territory. It was lightly defended, with only 3 patrol ships and some planetary defense systems. The Hive fleet could overwhelm it easily. Send the ultimatum, Valtor ordered. The message went out on all frequencies. Humans of New Jeju colony, you have 12 hours to evacuate. The Hive Collective is claiming this world in the name of galactic security. We will not harm you if you leave peacefully. Resist, and you will be destroyed. On New Jeju, Colony Administrator Sang-hoon Park received the message. He was a stocky man, with weathered hands, a farmer by trade who had been elected to lead the colony. He immediately called an emergency meeting of the Colony Council. They're serious, he told the gathered leaders. The fleet is massive. We can't stop them. We should fight, said one council member, a young woman named Yuna Han. She was the colony's militia commander, though the militia was really just volunteers with basic training. We can't just give up our homes. We're not giving up, Sang-hoon said calmly. We're following the plan. Remember what Earth told us when we took the oath of withdrawal. If anyone attacks human space, we don't engage. We leave. That makes no sense, Yuna argued. They'll think we're cowards. Let them think what they want, Sang-hoon replied. The colony moved with practiced efficiency. Every human had known this day might come. Ships were already fueled and loaded. Personal belongings were packed. Within 6 hours, the evacuation was nearly complete. Crix watched the evacuation on his screens. They're really leaving. Not a single shot fired. Not even a protest. It's a trick, Valtor insisted. They're luring us in, but it wasn't a trick. The last human transport left New Jeju's surface 10 hours after the ultimatum. As it departed, Sang-hoon broadcast a final message to the Hive fleet. You wanted our world. You can have it. The crops in the southern fields will be ready to harvest in 3 weeks. The water purification systems need maintenance every 30 days. Instructions are in the central computer. Good luck. Then the human ships jumped to faster-than-light speed and were gone. The Hive fleet cautiously entered orbit around New Jeju. They scanned for traps, for hidden weapons, for anything that might be dangerous. They found nothing. The colony was intact and empty. Houses still had food in refrigerators. Gardens were growing. A child's toy lay abandoned in a park. Crix led the first landing party. They walked through the empty streets of the main settlement. It was a beautiful place, well-maintained and clearly loved by its inhabitants. But now, it was a ghost town. They didn't even sabotage anything, one of his officers said, confused. The power plants still work. The farms are undamaged. They just left. Valtor arrived later, expecting to feel victorious. Instead, he felt uneasy. Send a message to the human border stations. Tell them we have occupied New Jeju. Demand they negotiate with us. The response came 3 hours later. It was short and emotionless. We told you we were done talking. You wanted that colony. Keep it. Don't contact us again. News of New Jeju's fall spread across the galaxy in hours. But instead of looking weak, humanity's response terrified the other species. They had surrendered without a fight, without even a word of protest. It wasn't defeat. It was dismissal. They don't care, Arindus told the council. Don't you see? They've completely detached from galactic affairs. That colony meant something to them, I'm sure, but dealing with us meant nothing. So they chose to lose the colony rather than engage with us. That's insane, Trade Minister Drexus said. No species abandons territory like that. Humans just did, Chairman Talonvor said quietly. And I think I'm beginning to understand why. Other species began to question the hive's actions. If humans wouldn't fight even when attacked, then clearly they weren't preparing for war. So why had they withdrawn? What had driven them to this extreme isolation? Some species started reviewing their own histories with humanity. They looked back at meetings where humans had argued passionately for justice, only to be voted down. They remembered treaties the council had broken when it was convenient. They recalled times when humans had begged the council to intervene in atrocities, and the council had chosen politics instead. A delegate from the Mentari species stood up in the council chambers. I've been reviewing the records. 73 years ago, humans asked us to help stop the Krylon invasion of the Vexar holy sites. We voted no because Krylon was a major trading partner. The humans were furious. But they stayed. They kept trying to work with us. 50 years ago, another delegate added, humans proposed a law against slavery in all council territories. We voted it down because 12 member species still practiced forms of slavery. The humans stayed, but they stopped smiling at us. 30 years ago, said a third voice, the Kiltar genocide began. Humans begged us to intervene. We refused because it would disrupt regional stability. That was when I noticed human ambassadors started looking tired. Chairman Talonvor closed his eyes. We broke them, little by little, compromise by compromise. We taught them that justice didn't matter, and eventually, they stopped believing we could change. So they left, Arindus said. They chose their principles over us. On Border Station 7, Dae-Jung Lee watched New Jeju's former inhabitants arrive at human stations. Sang-hoon Park came to his office, looking weary but unbowed. They have our world, Sang-hoon said. Do you think it was worth it? Dae-Jung nodded. They'll learn. Maybe not today, but they'll learn that some things matter more than territory. Across the galaxy, the panic was transforming into something else. And with understanding came a terrible question. What had they become that humanity would rather lose everything than remain part of their society? 1 year after humanity's withdrawal, a single human ship appeared at the edge of council space. It was small and unarmed, broadcasting a request to speak before the full council assembly. After a year of silence, the galaxy held its breath. The ship carried one passenger, Dr. Bo-Ra Kim, a xenoanthropologist who had spent 40 years studying alien cultures. She was a small woman, with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back in a simple style. She walked into the council chambers alone, carrying only a data storage device. Chairman Talonvor stood to greet her. Dr. Kim, welcome. We're grateful you've come. Please, tell us what happened. Tell us why humanity abandoned us. Bo-Ra looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. She felt no fear, only a deep sadness. I haven't come to negotiate. I've come to explain. Whether you understand or not is up to you. She plugged her data device into the council's central computer. Screens throughout the chamber lit up with files. Thousands upon thousands of files. Documents, recordings, testimonies, images. More than a century of carefully documented evidence. This is the record, Bora said quietly. Every time humanity asked you to uphold justice, and you refused. Every time we begged you to intervene in atrocities, and you chose convenience instead. Every treaty you broke when it suited you. Every promise you forgot. Every time you punished the weak, but forgave the strong. She pressed a button. A video began to play. It showed human ambassador Hyun-woo Kim from 73 years earlier. Much younger then. Arguing before the council. The Krylon are destroying Vexar cultural sites. These are ancient temples, irreplaceable heritage. We must act. The video showed the council's response. This is an internal matter. We cannot interfere with Krylon sovereignty. Another video played. A different human ambassador, a woman named Sora Yang, standing before the council 30 years ago. The Kieltar people are being systematically eliminated. Their homeworld has been invaded. Their population has dropped from 6 million to 300,000 in 5 years. This is genocide. We must intervene. The council's response. The situation is complex. The regional powers have legitimate security concerns. Intervention would destabilize the entire sector. More videos played, more examples, not just dramatic cases, but small ones too. Trade disputes, where the council sided with whoever was more powerful. Legal cases where justice was ignored because the perpetrator had influence. Treaties where promises made to small species were broken to please large ones. Bora let the videos play for an hour. The council chambers were silent, except for the voices from the past. Human after human arguing for principles that the council repeatedly rejected. Finally, Bora spoke again. For 127 years, we tried. We believed you could change. We believed that if we just explained clearly enough, argued passionately enough, presented enough evidence, you would choose justice over politics. She paused, looking at Chairman Talanvor. Do you know when we finally gave up? It was the Kieltar genocide. We watched you let an entire species nearly die because intervention was inconvenient. And that was when humanity realized something terrible. What? Asked Arindis, the empathic being. That you didn't care, Bora said simply. Not really. You cared about stability. You cared about trade. You cared about not upsetting powerful members. But justice? Principles? The lives of small, weak species? Those were just words to you. Things to discuss in debates, but never act on. Trade Minister Drexus stood up angrily. That's not fair. We've maintained peace for centuries. We've built a galactic civilization. That requires compromise. Compromise, Bora repeated. That's the word you always used. But what you called compromise, we called complicity. Every time you looked away from injustice, you became part of it. And you wanted us to be part of it too. She pulled up another file. This is testimony from human diplomats who served here. Read their words. They talk about how it felt to watch the council betray its own principles again and again. How it hurt to smile at species who committed atrocities because politics required it. How they started to feel dirty, like they were becoming accomplices to evil. A video appeared showing a young human diplomat, a man named Taemin Cho, speaking to a camera. His eyes were red from crying. I can't do this anymore. I argued for 6 hours about the slave markets on Draxus 9. 6 hours. And they voted to take no action because Draxus 9 exports rare minerals. Children are being sold. And we're worried about minerals. What are we becoming? Bora continued. That's what you did to us. Little by little, compromise by compromise, you tried to teach us that justice was naive, that principles were impractical, that we should accept your way of doing things. But you stayed for a century, Chairman Talonvor said. Why stay so long if you felt this way? Because we hoped, Bora said, and for the first time her voice cracked with emotion. We genuinely believed we could change you. We thought if we just kept trying, kept arguing, kept presenting evidence, eventually you would see. Eventually, you would choose to be better. She pulled up the final file. It was a hologram of Jae-sung, Earth's current leader. He was a serious man with kind eyes. Dr. Kim speaks for all humanity, his hologram said. We didn't leave in anger, though we had right to anger. We left in disappointment. We realized we were trying to change people who didn't want to change. And worse, we realized we were changing instead. The hologram continued. We couldn't let that happen. We couldn't let our children grow up thinking this was how civilized beings behaved. So, we chose isolation, not as punishment, but as protection. Protection of our own values, our own principles, our own souls. Bora unplugged her data device. We've given you this record so you understand. We didn't abandon you. We stepped away from a system we could no longer support. What you do with that information is your choice. She turned to leave. Wait, Chairman Talonvor called out. What would it take for humanity to return? What are your conditions? Bora stopped and looked back. We don't have conditions. We're not negotiating. If you want to change, change for yourselves. Change because it's right, not because you want us back. Change because you're ashamed of what you've become. But would you consider returning if we reformed? Pressed Arindis. Maybe, Bora said. If the reforms were real, if justice actually mattered to you, if you created systems that held the powerful accountable, not just the weak, if you proved, through years of action, that you'd actually changed. She shrugged. But that's your choice to make. We're not holding our breath. She walked out of the chambers. Her ship departed an hour later. Behind her, she left a council in chaos. Some members were angry at being judged. Others were defensive, insisting they'd done nothing wrong. But many, especially representatives of smaller species, were quiet and thoughtful. They had seen the evidence. They had heard the testimony. And they couldn't deny the truth. Humanity had been right about them. They had built a civilization on convenient compromises, and somewhere along the way, they had lost sight of justice entirely. The question now was whether they had the courage to change, or whether they would continue as they were, without humanity, to remind them of the principles they had abandoned. In human space, Bora reported to Jae-sung, "Oh, I gave them the truth," she said. "What they do with it is up to them." "Do you think they'll change?" he asked. "Some of them want to," Bora said. "Whether they can overcome the ones who don't, I don't know. But at least now, they can't say they don't understand why we left." 3 years after humanity's withdrawal, the Galactic Council no longer existed in its old form. The collapse began slowly, then accelerated. After Bora Kim's testimony, the smaller species started demanding real accountability. They had watched humanity walk away, and it gave them courage. If the humans could reject a corrupt system, so could they. The Mentari species withdrew from the council 6 months after Bora's visit. Then, the Vexar. Then, a dozen others. The council tried to continue with its remaining members, but the economic disruptions were too severe. Trade networks collapsed. Diplomatic frameworks fell apart. The old system simply stopped functioning. From the ashes, something new emerged. Led by Arindis and a coalition of reformed species, the new Galactic Assembly was founded. It had different rules. Strict rules. War crimes tribunals with real authority. Trade sanctions for species that committed atrocities. mandatory intervention protocols for genocide and slavery, and most importantly, equal voting power for all species, regardless of size or economic strength. Chairman Talon Vor had resigned in shame after Bora's testimony. But Arindis invited him to serve as an advisor to the new assembly. "You were part of the problem," Arindis told him. "Now be part of the solution. Help us build what we should have built a century ago." The Kieltar survivors, those who had escaped the genocide that the old council ignored, were given protected status. The 300,000 survivors were granted a new homeworld, paid for by contributions from every assembly member. The species that had invaded their original world faced sanctions and reparations. It wasn't perfect. Many species resisted the changes. Some refused to join the new assembly at all. But for the first time in galactic history, there were real consequences for injustice. And through it all, humanity watched from behind their borders. In the 4th year after the withdrawal, Ambassador Ji-un Kang prepared for the most important mission of her life. She was young for an ambassador, only 32. But she had been chosen for a reason. She represented the new generation, the ones who had grown up during the isolation. Her ship approached the human border, accompanied by representatives from 20 species. They broadcast a message on all frequencies. "We request permission to speak. We understand if you refuse, but we hope you'll give us a chance. We, for 3 days." There was no response. Then Border Station 7 sent a message. "You may approach. One ship only. No weapons. You will meet at Station 7. Daejong Lee, now an old man, watched the alien ship dock. He had spent 4 years turning away visitors. Now, finally, his orders had changed. Ji-un stepped off her ship nervously. With her was Arindis, former Chairman Talon Vor, and representatives from several other species. They were led to a conference room, where 3 humans waited. One was Hyunwoo Kim, the ambassador who had delivered humanity's withdrawal announcement. He was much older now, officially retired. Beside him sat Jae-sung Oh, Earth's leader, and on his other side was Sora Yang, the historian who had compiled humanity's evidence against the Council. "Thank you for seeing us," Ji-un began. She had practiced this speech 100 times, but now the words felt inadequate. "We've come to tell you about the changes we've made. The new Galactic Assembly operates on different principles than the old Council. We've established justice systems with real authority. We've intervened in 3 humanitarian crises in the past year. We've sanctioned 4 species for various abuses. We're trying to build what you always wanted us to build." She pulled up data on a screen, showing the Assembly's actions. War crime tribunals, humanitarian interventions, trade sanctions against oppressors, protection for vulnerable species. It was an impressive record for just 3 years. Hyun-woo studied the data carefully. "This is good work," he said finally. "I'm glad to see it. But why are you telling us?" "Because we want to ask," Ji-un said. "If humanity would consider rejoining galactic society, not as mediators or peacekeepers, as equals, as partners, in building something better." Silence filled the room. The aliens waited nervously. Finally, Jae-sung Oh spoke. "We've watched your progress. We're impressed by what you've accomplished. But we need to know, why did you change? Was it because you wanted us back, or because you realized it was the right thing to do?" Arindis answered, their light form pulsing with emotion. "Both, perhaps. Your absence forced us to confront what we'd become. We couldn't blame you for our failures anymore. We had to look at ourselves. And we didn't like what we saw. And the end," Talon Vor added. "I personally reviewed every case your Dr. Kim presented. Every example of injustice we ignored. It took me 6 months to get through all the files. By the end, I understood why you left. I was ashamed. Many of us were. Shame isn't enough," Sora Yang said quietly. "Shame fades, systems endure. What guarantees do we have that you won't slip back into old patterns? None, Ji-un admitted. We can't guarantee anything. We can only show you what we've done and promise to keep doing better. We've built accountability into our systems. We've given power to the powerless. We've made justice harder to ignore. But you're right that we could fail again. She paused, then continued. That's partly why we need you. You hold us accountable just by existing. Your absence was the strongest criticism we ever received. Your presence could be the reminder we need to stay on the right path. The humans looked at each other. They had discussed this moment many times over the past year, ever since it became clear the galaxy was genuinely changing. We'll need time, Jae-sung said. We can't just flip a switch and rejoin galactic society. Our people have built a life behind these borders. Many of them are happy here, away from galactic politics. We'd need to put it to a vote. We understand, Ji-un said. We're not asking for an immediate answer. We're asking if you'll consider it. And if you do decide to engage with us again, we're asking if we can start small. Maybe cultural exchanges? Trade agreements? Small steps to rebuild trust. Hyun-woo leaned back in his chair. You know, when I delivered the withdrawal speech, I never thought I'd live to see this day. I thought we'd be isolated forever. I made peace with that. And now? Asked Irindis. Now I have hope, Hyun-woo said. Cautious hope. But hope, nonetheless. The meeting lasted 6 hours. They discussed details, possibilities, concerns. The aliens explained their new systems. The humans explained their conditions. No agreements were finalized, but something important happened. They talked to each other honestly, without the political games that had poisoned the old council. As the alien delegation prepared to leave, Talon Vor approached Hyun-woo privately. I owe you an apology. You tried to tell us for decades. I dismissed you as idealistic. I thought you didn't understand how complex governance was. But you understood perfectly. You understood we were failing, and I was too comfortable to see it. Hyun-woo put his hand on the old chairman's wing. You see it now. That's what matters. Use that sight to keep the assembly honest. 6 months later, humanity held its vote. It was close, but the decision was made. They would cautiously re-engage with galactic society. Not as members of the assembly yet, but as partners. They would establish embassies, open trade routes, and participate in cultural exchanges. They would watch carefully to see if the changes were real and lasting. The first joint human-alien project was a colony on an uninhabited world called New Hope. Species from across the assembly worked alongside humans to build it, not as a human colony or an alien colony, but as a shared venture. A symbol of what cooperation could achieve when built on principles rather than convenience. Taemin Cho, the young diplomat who had quit in tears years earlier, volunteered to be the human coordinator for New Hope. He stood on the colony's landing pad, watching ships arrive from a dozen different worlds. Beside him stood Ji-un, now serving as the assembly's liaison to humanity. Do you think it'll work? Ji-un asked him. Can we really build something different this time? Taemin watched a Mentari child and a human child playing together, laughing at something only they understood. I think we have a chance. We failed before because we prioritized the wrong things. We chose comfort over justice, convenience over principles. This time, we know better. We've seen what happens when we forget why we came together in the first place. And if we start to forget again? Ji-un asked. Then maybe humans will leave again, Taemin said. And maybe they should. Sometimes walking away is the strongest statement you can make. It's the lesson you taught us. Some things matter more than unity. Justice matters more. Truth matters more. Principles matter more. Ji-un nodded. Then let's make sure we never forget. On Earth, Hyun-woo Kim watched a broadcast of New Hope's opening ceremony. He was very old now, his time short. But he smiled as he watched the colony come to life. Humanity had taken a great risk when they withdrew from the galaxy. They had sacrificed much, but in the end, they had achieved something remarkable. They had forced an entire civilization to examine its soul. The experiment was beginning again, fragile, uncertain, built on genuine mutual respect rather than convenient politics. It might fail. They all knew that. But this time, at least, they were starting from a place of honesty, and perhaps, Hyunwoo thought as he closed his eyes, that was enough. They had proven that principles mattered, that justice wasn't naive, that sometimes the greatest strength was the courage to walk away from corruption, even when it cost everything. The galaxy had panicked when humanity broke off all diplomacy. But from that panic came understanding. From understanding came change. And from change came hope for something better than they had built before. The question now was whether they could sustain it. Only time would tell.